Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very grateful to the Onyx Link Foundation for the opportunity to address you all here today in Newport. I think the Reverend's presentation is going to be a difficult act to follow because I don't have any props or any Venn diagrams to offer you on a PowerPoint slide. The theme of this conference, from our shared values to our shared citizenship, is both important and relevant in today's increasingly fractured and troubled society. I was really encouraged to hear Dr. Abdullah at the beginning of the conference say that the intention of the Onyx Link Foundation is to ease the tension of the world today, and that kind of message really resonated with me whilst I was listening to his presentation earlier. Society is fractured. I mean, we live in a time where there's polarisation around whether or not you believe in Brexit or not. Hate crime towards minority groups, which was touched on by the Minister. Violent extremism, sort of the worst manifestation of which we've seen in New Zealand and Sri Lanka. Escalating knife crime, family breakdown, as well as a lack of compassion for the less fortunate in society. We must all acknowledge that values and beliefs drive behaviours. So it goes without saying, and with the theme of this conference in mind, good citizenship based on adherence to the law of the land, along with positive civic engagement, is important, as is adherence to our respective faith traditions. And it's wonderful to see so many different people of so many different faiths in the room. Citizenship can help an individual understand and respect the norms of society and thus enhance his or her opportunities. Skills in citizenship often help people to succeed materially in education and their standing in society. The teaching of our great faiths, on the other hand, frequently challenge social norms, and religious teachings have nothing to do with conformity or, equally importantly, matters of material gain, but rather how they can better society as a whole. And religion takes us away from an obsession with self to active concern for others and inculcating that in the congregations that we all attend. So it would be rather inappropriate for me to stand before you here today and use that overused marketing slogan, because I'm worth it. Religion bases its teachings on fundamental truths, and unlike the law of the land, these do not change with time nor place. It goes without saying that our values provide us a moral compass, and it allows us to make important judgments during our day-to-day experiences. So these core values will affect your interactions with your families, your employees, the people that you sit next to on the bus or the train, and even the homeless person that you walk past when you're on your local high street. This extends to many other aspects of life. So I think from a faith perspective, when we reflect on citizenship, we probably need to actually ask ourselves honestly, do our faith teachings and the way we practice our faith, are they consistent with democratic values? For example, do our faith traditions promote equal rights for women, respect for those of other beliefs, etc., etc.? These are really kind of important questions for us to ask. Does our faith help address social inequalities, like encouraging us to help the sick, the elderly, the disabled, help the environment, and the hungry and impoverished? Now, Sikhism has a principle called daswand, which is similar to tithing, where we give a proportion of our income to charitable causes. And we have an institution which you may or may not have heard of, called Langar, or Free Kitchen, where anyone of any background is able to go to get a free vegetarian meal and a cup of chai, prepared entirely by volunteers in any gurdwara anywhere in the world. I wasn't expecting to pay homage to one of the comedians from Monty Python today, but thanks to Michael Palin, his travelogue Himalaya, I was fascinated to learn that the kitchen in one of Sikhism's holiest shrines in Amritsar, the Golden Temple, or the Harmandir Sahib as we call it, produces 50,000 meals each weekday and double that on weekends. I can't begin to think how many chapatis that equates to annually. Perhaps someone who's a mathematician in the audience may be able to assist me during a coffee break. I've also been encouraged this year to see Sikhs around the world taking part in a fantastic initiative where they're planting 1 million trees as a gift to the entire planet to help reverse environmental decline as part of celebrations of the 550th year since the birth of Guru Nanak, the founder of Sikhism. In the Japji prayer, Guru Nanak says, "Air the Guru, water the Father, and earth the Great Mother. Honour all of life," he reminds us, "for life honours us with what its gifts are." So Sikhism teaches us that we have a responsibility to care for not just the environment, but for the less fortunate, and it stresses the importance of helping fellow human beings. Khalsa Aid is a Sikh charity which is marking its 20th anniversary this year, and they've recently been helping victims of ISIS in Syria, as well as the Rohingya refugees fleeing Burma. This is faith in action. However, I think we must constantly question whether or not we are truly living values in accordance with our faith, rather than paying mere lip service to foundational principles and thereby acting as hypocrites who selectively promote sanctimonious claptrap to when it suits us or when people are watching and it's convenient. To illustrate with an example, Sikhism promotes equality for women, and Guru Nanak rallied against the ill treatment of women in medieval India, opposing the parda, the covering of women, and sati, where there was self-immolation of women in the funeral pyres of their deceased husbands, a practice that was outlawed later by the British during the Raj. So, at least that was something positive. So given this, you'd expect that the modern-day custodians of Sikhism to naturally promote women's equality. After all, these egalitarian values were espoused 500 years ago, long before the suffragettes got the women's right to vote in this country 100 years ago. But that's not always necessarily the case. A Gurdwara president that I know, who will remain anonymous, I'll give you a clue, his name is Mr. Singh, always talks of women's rights and how great Sikh teachings are, how wonderful they are. But last time I checked, there wasn't a single woman sitting on his Gurdwara committee. When I pointed this inconvenient truth out, of course it was a very difficult conversation to broach and hugely embarrassing for him. But it pricked his conscience. Actions, ladies and gentlemen, speak louder than words. There are, of course, other very difficult conversations to be had in the interfaith context. And in today's age of social media virtue signalling, it can be treacherous to grasp the nettle of these contentious issues. On the way up here, I looked up the dictionary definition of the word heathen, which is a person who does not belong to a widely held religion, especially one who is not Christian, Jew, or Muslim, as regarded by those who do. The words kafir and Gentile are not dissimilar. I can't help but think where that leaves someone like me, and the real and frightening consequences this kind of othering has for my co-religionists in places like Afghanistan and the tribal regions of Pakistan, where some of them have actually been murdered for their beliefs. In order for us to foster a more cohesive community and society, it is important for us to recognise how in doctrinal interpretations, and I know this is work that Dr. Abdullah is doing, can and manipulates religious zealots, weaponising terms that are used to harm fellow human beings in the name of God. Those who call themselves faith leaders, and for the record, I don't call myself a faith leader, and probably when it comes to the Sikh community, anyone with a turban regards themselves as a leader anyway, so that's probably quite a lot of leaders, not as many Sikhs. We have a moral responsibility to face up to this reality and take urgent steps to address it. We must stand up against those who peddle a hate-filled narrative, and this is by no means an easy task. It takes courage to stand up to the bullies, especially when the bullies are greater in number and in charge. In his very first sermon, Guru Nanak declared, "Na koi Hindu, na koi Musalman," that in God's eyes there is neither Hindu nor Muslim, and by today's extension, Christian, Sikh or Jew. God, he taught, is not interested in our religious labels, but in the way we behave. These universal and immutable teachings are, however, different to citizenship, I'd argue. Let me illustrate. So when my father came to London in the 1960s from the Punjab, sort of northern region of India, he it was not unusual for him to come across signs which read "No blacks, no dogs, and no Irish." It was only later, when race relations legislation was enacted, that this stopped. Citizenship teaching at the time would not have criticised this behaviour. It would have rather have accepted it to be the norm, save for a few brave individuals who pushed back against egregious prejudice, equating minority groups to canines. Incidentally, we're marking the 40th anniversary this year of the murder of Blair Peach, who was an anti-Nazi League protester who was killed during the Southall riots. And approximately around the same time, maybe a few years earlier, there was the murder of a Sikh schoolboy, Hardeep Singh, who was murdered by racists. And it was encouraging to see sort of the memorial plaques go up in Southall and all the communities come together to mark this important time. But I'd like to think that the changes that have come in legislation were because of enlightened thinking. But having studied the literature, it's apparent that it was more fear of social unrest that led to these anti-discrimination laws. Faith which promotes equality for all and stands up for social injustice remains a beacon for hope for humanity in an increasingly fractured and troubled society. We have a moral responsibility to nurture values which promote fairness, justice, equality, tolerance, and rights for all. I will end with a reference to the words of the 10th Guru of Sikhism, Guru Gobind Singh, who famously said, "Manas ki jaat ek peshano," which translates to "recognize the human race as one." Many thanks.